Thank you for joining me in this Darebee Wellbeing and Self-Care video. I'm David, your host, and today I'm going to talk about the 3 pillars of fitness. A lot of the subjects which we talk about come from suggestions, from the comments that you make on YouTube and from the emails that we receive, but this particular one came from a discussion I had with a friend very recently, and he is undergoing through a very stressful part of his life right now because he's going through a very messy divorce. There are kids involved. He's really stressed out. It has blindsided him. He wasn't really expecting this to happen, obviously. And his fitness has suffered as a result. His weight has ballooned a little bit because he's not eating properly and he's not sleeping very well and he's not exercising. Trying to advise him, trying to suggest a few things he can do. He basically said to me, well, it's easy for you to say that, David, because your life is so well put together. You don't have a problem in the world. And that made me think, because although I present this image of being always in control, I have my own share of problems in my life. I have my own stresses every day. I have my own uncertainties about who I am and what I do, which I have to deal with. And as I age, these things don't actually get any easier. So although I appear to have a kind of perfect balance, it's anything but. And the way I deal with things, the way I have managed to put things together has come from a lot of thinking which I've done with myself, a lot of work which I've done on myself, a lot of internalizing of my own imperfections and insecurities, and then thinking how I can use exercise, which for me has always been a tool, in order to make my life better, in order to make my cognition better, in order to improve my emotional balance. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Essentially, fitness has 3 elements, 3 pillars, if you like. The first one is cognitive. The second one is physical, and the third one is emotional. And I'm going to talk about each one in detail now, so that you can understand them better and actually see how you can use this knowledge in yourself in order to improve not just what you do physically in terms of getting fitter, but also how you feel about what you do, so emotionally you get more stable. How you think about what you do, so you attain the kind of mental clarity that allows you to have not just a better fitness journey, but a better life journey. Now, the 3 pillars of fitness are cognitive. And by cognitive, it comes down to knowing what to do. So if you're planning to get fit, if you're planning to exercise, knowing what to do in advance, having some kind of plan, having some kind of schedule laid out where you exercise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days a week, or whatever it is you're actually doing, is actually in place. And it is important within that kind of plan to make sure that you take into account the fact that you're exercising, but you also have other things going on in your life, which are going to drain a little bit of your time. They're going to drain a little bit of your emotional resources. They're going to cognitively tie you down because you're dealing with issues in your head. And all those things will have a repercussion in what you're doing in your physical life, in your fitness plan. So if you have a plan, it needs to have a backup for the days or the times when that plan fails. And if you have a backup, then you need to have a backup on the backup, because sometimes things get so difficult that even the backup can't work. And I'm going to give you an example here. I usually train about an hour a day, every single day of the week. But there are days of the week when I just can't, because I have to deal with things which I wasn't expecting. Perhaps something in my work life hasn't gone right, and that's going to absorb a lot more time and effort to straighten out. Or, sometimes in my emotional world, things are not right. And I'm not feeling it, and things are bad, and I have sort of stresses to deal with, and I don't have time to exercise because things have spun out of control a little bit. For those days, I have a backup. I will do 5 or 10 minute exercise slots, and I know what to do in those backup moments. But even if I haven't got those 5 minutes, I have a backup on my backup by putting in place exercise snacks, which are mini exercises, micro workouts, which will take me 30 seconds or 1 minute max. And by doing that, what I essentially do is not replacing my workout. Obviously, that's lost. But I am replacing my sense of control. I am telling myself that, okay, things have gone not according to plan. Things are spinning a little bit out of control from my planned schedule. But that doesn't mean that I'm living in a chaotic environment in which I have zero control. And by gaining that control back, what I'm doing internally is I'm reducing my stress levels, I'm reducing the toxicity that kind of stress sort of produces inside us. And that allows my organs, my internal organs, and that includes my brain, to function better. But it also allows me to feel that I can still guide my life when the external world is doing its best to wrest that control away from me. And that allows me to be emotionally more stable, because I don't feel as anxious, I don't feel as sort of in a sense of panic, and that gives me that kind of control that I need in order to navigate those difficult parts of my life or those difficult parts of my day. So essentially, when you are putting your cognitive element in place, when you're saying, I'm going to exercise Monday to Friday, this is what I'm going to do each day, you need to take into account the fact that things are not always going to be perfect, and you need to have contingencies and contingencies on your contingencies for those days. And this is really, really important. I know it sounds a little bit like we're over planning, but like I gave you the example, it allows you to have control, to feel that you're in the driving seat when everything else around you seems determined to tell you the exact opposite. The second element, the second pillar to fitness is physical. And that's actually things which we do. Now, exercise is a stressor in itself. We need that stressor because it basically triggers the adaptations necessary for us to become stronger and healthier and sort of fitter overall. But because it's a stressor, you need, when you plan what to do, to know yourself, what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and how you're going to basically compensate for each one in your exercise plan. If you are overly ambitious, if, for example, you've never done weights in your life, and suddenly you put in place a plan where you're going to exercise 4 days a week, and you're going to do a lot of weights during those times, well, you are basically setting yourself up to fail, because you have failed to take into account that you may, on a particular day, not have recovered enough to do what you want to do. You may, on that particular day, not be able to do what you want to do because you don't have sufficient time or sufficient energy because something else has happened in your life. And that then generates a sense of failure. And the moment we start feeling about ourselves as a failure, that toxic internal dialogue we're also good at kicks in. And the moment it kicks in, all we do, because we know ourselves intimately, we know our weaknesses intimately, what we do is tell ourselves how bad we are at planning, how bad we are at discipline, how bad we are at sticking with things, how we're not really worth anything as much as we think we are, and how delusional we are when we think that we can basically do all this without sort of stopping or dropping it. Avoid all of that. Make sure when you plan what to do, that you're working on your strengths, you're doing things which are helping you feel that you're getting better. You can do things which challenge you, by all means, but make sure that those challenging things are not there to crush you. This is not what exercise is. It's not there to make you feel like you're not worth anything. It's not there to make you feel that you don't deserve to feel great about yourself. So plan wisely your exercise routine. Pick things which challenge you, by all means, but make sure you have active recovery times in that. Make sure that you have sufficient sleep for that, because this is basic self-care. Make sure that your nutrition is okay, because this is part of your physical fitness regime. Make sure that you hydrate properly. Make sure you don't drink too much. If you're drinking, make sure you don't smoke. If you are smoking, you shouldn't really be doing any of those things, but I'm not here to preach. This is your life. You're the one who's making those choices. So make sure that you're reducing the stressors which you add to the additional stress of exercise. So that's your physical pillar. And finally, we get to the emotional pillar. It's a final pillar of fitness. Emotionally, we need to feel good about what we do. We need to feel good about the things which we force ourselves to go through when we exercise. And then we need to feel good afterwards. And we can only feel good about these things if we're exercising for the right reasons. And you need to work out those reasons for yourself. If we are feeling the right things when we exercise, if we are trying to basically create that larger picture with the really big goals which allow us to have great life, great longevity, great health as we age, great capability, feel more empowered, feel more confident. These are all feelings, these are all emotions, and you need to build those emotions in your fitness regime. If you exercise, for instance, and you're so tired from exercise and life itself that at the end of your workout you're utterly exhausted and all you can do is crawl to bed, well, I can guarantee you that you will not be doing it for much longer. It's too difficult, it makes you feel bad. Anything which makes us feel bad accumulates in our brain and demotivates us. This is the way we're actually designed. So avoid that by being smart. Do things which make you feel good. Work on yourself to understand what it is that makes you feel good. Work on yourself to understand why do some things make you feel bad. If you do all this, if you have your cognitive pillar in place by planning your exercise regime, not just in a week, but perhaps in a month and maybe even in the year. If you have your physical plan in place, so you know what to do each day, you don't have to work it out on the spot, you don't have to sit back and work out what you're going to do before your workout even begins, because if you're doing that, it's already tiring. You're tiring yourself out already, trying to work out what it is that you're going to do. You're trying to calculate how much energy you have now, and if you're doing it at the end of the day, you're already tired and it's exhausting you before you even started. And work on your emotional pillar. Work on your emotions. Understand who you are. Understand what it is that motivates you. Understand what it is that makes you feel good and seek it out. Understand what it is that makes you feel bad and try to avoid it. If you put those three things in place in your fitness life, well, fitness becomes easier for a start, but you also become emotionally more stable. You become better able to regulate your emotions when things get crazy. You become better at dealing with things, dealing with stresses, dealing with crises, because cognitively you have clearer thinking. Essentially, by putting those three pillars in place, what we're doing is building margin. And margin is the head space and the emotional space and even the physical space we have to deal with the unexpected, to deal with an illness, to deal with a crisis, to deal with a massive stress in our life, like a divorce, for instance, like my friend. And when we have margin, sure, what we're facing is going to challenge us. For sure, it's going to challenge anybody. We're all human and we all get challenged by these things. But it shouldn't derail us to the point that we can't function. And the only way to get to that kind of physical, cognitive and emotional strength is to build it beforehand. So essentially, by feeling good about what we do, feeling empowered, feeling confident, feeling capable, learning to think clearly because we are making better decisions each day because we're not as stressed by life itself, because our fitness and our planning allow us to de-stress. Then we have the margin necessary when we do face a crisis, when we do face an emotional or physical or even a cognitive challenge, to deal with it more successfully. I sincerely hope this has helped. I hope it makes you think a little bit deeper about what you're doing in terms of your fitness. I'm going to link to some more resources in the resource box on YouTube, so please check it out. Please let me know in the comments below how you found this, if it's helpful, and what you do with it. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there.